My girlfriend Vanessa and I had been together for 3 years when everything collapsed. I'm a software developer who works remotely, and we'd been sharing an apartment for about a year and a half. I genuinely believed we were constructing something meaningful, something that would last. That Thursday evening, I walked through the door after picking up groceries and discovered her in our bedroom, packing a suitcase on the bed. Black lace items I'd never laid eyes on before. Sheer tops, fancy clubbing outfits. She was preparing for a weekend in Vegas with her girlfriends Megan and Olivia. A girls' trip, she explained. I had zero issue with that concept. What I absolutely had an issue with was the group chat I'd accidentally stumbled across on her iPad the previous night. She'd abandoned it on the living room couch, and a notification had popped up while I sat there watching TV. It was from Brett, one of the guys from her gym. The message read, "Can't wait to see you in Vegas V," followed by a champagne bottle emoji. When I tapped it, not digging but simply seeing what was visible, I discovered that Brett and his friend Zane were flying out to Vegas that exact same weekend, booked at the identical hotel. I maintained a level tone when I mentioned it. "So, I noticed on your iPad that Brett and Zane are heading to Vegas this weekend too. Same hotel you're staying at. That's quite the coincidence." Her hands froze for maybe half a second. Then she continued packing, but her movements became sharper, more aggressive. "Vegas is enormous, Marcus. It's a massive city. Millions of people visit. We're all adults here. If we happen to bump into them, we'll say hello. It's really not a big deal." I leaned my shoulder against the doorframe, arms crossed. Bumping into them seems statistically guaranteed, though, given the group chat where you're all clearly coordinating plans. Brett literally said he can't wait to see you. Zane sent champagne emojis. This doesn't feel like coincidence. Feels deliberately planned. She pivoted to face me then, and her expression transformed into this masterpiece of wounded exasperation she'd perfected over our time together. Like I was a confused child who fundamentally misunderstood how adult relationships functioned. "You went through my iPad," she accused, her tone sharp. "You left it open on the couch with the screen lit up." The notification appeared right in front of me. "I didn't dig through your messages or snoop, but that's completely beside the point. The actual point is you're supposedly going on a girls' trip where 2 guys you spend hours with at the gym just happen to be there at the same time without their girlfriends present, and you didn't think that was worth mentioning to me." She released this long theatrical sigh, rolled her eyes toward the ceiling as though seeking divine intervention for my parents' stupidity. When she looked back down at me, there was this dismissive pity etched into her features that sliced deeper than any screaming match could have. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said, her voice absolutely dripping with condescension. "You're suffocating me, Marcus. The absolute second you hear about a male friend existing in my life, your brain immediately jumps to the worst, most possessive place imaginable. You don't trust me at all. This controlling behavior is completely exhausting." "It's not about controlling you or lacking trust," I said, deliberately keeping my tone measured and calm. "It's about mutual respect in this relationship, about how situations appear, about maintaining appropriate boundaries." She actually laughed at that, a short humorless sound. "Boundaries, optics. Are you my boyfriend or my public relations manager? I can't live my entire life constantly worried about how things look to you." She air-quoted the word optics like it was some kind of infectious disease. "I need space to actually breathe, to have fun with my friends without constantly having you acting like some jealous chaperone living inside my head." She grabbed the sheer black top and threw it into her suitcase with aggressive finality, then yanked the zipper closed. The sound was sharp, definitive, absolute. "If you're going to be jealous every single time I go out and have fun with my friends, just leave." Those words hung suspended in the air between us. They weren't screamed in heated anger. They were delivered coolly, calmly, surgically. A clean option being presented on a silver platter. Just leave. Not "we should talk this through" or "you're overreacting to nothing." The absolute nuclear option. The relationship discard clause. I felt the foundation beneath me shift. 3 years of shared life together, a lease with both our names, shared groceries and bills, planned vacations and talked about futures. All of it transformed into sand beneath my feet. My heart didn't shatter into pieces. It went eerily silent. This strange ringing clarity descended over me like fresh snowfall. She clearly mistook my silence for complete surrender because this small smug smile touched the corners of her lips. "We obviously need this space anyway," she said, her tone softening into patronizing reassurance. "Maybe while I'm away in Vegas, you can do some serious thinking. Maybe you'll realize just how insecure you're being about everything. I'll text you when my plane lands, okay? Try your best not to work yourself into some kind of panic attack." She walked directly past me with her rolling suitcase, the wheel running straight over my foot. She didn't even notice or care. In the living room, she paused at the mirror beside the front door, fluffing her hair, checking her reflection, already mentally and emotionally checked out. Her mind was clearly already in some Vegas nightclub, basking in the perceived victory of winning this argument. I followed her path to the door. She turned around, obviously expecting me to plead or launch one final argument she could easily bat away. She looked at my face, and her smug confidence flickered for just an instant. There was no anger visible there, no sadness, nothing she could identify or weaponize. "Okay," I said, my voice completely flattened, devoid of all emotion. A simple statement of fact. "Enjoy your trip." The absolute blandness of my response clearly confused her. She blinked momentarily off balance. "I will," she forced out with artificial brightness. "Marcus." The apartment door clicked shut behind her. I walked slowly to the window and watched her load her suitcase into the waiting ride-share vehicle. She never once looked back up at our apartment windows. Not a single glance. As the car pulled away from the curb, a memory surfaced, unbidden and brutal. 2 years earlier on our first anniversary, we'd both been completely broke, grinding away at entry-level positions and barely making rent. She'd been eyeing this vintage acoustic guitar in a pawn shop window for literally months. Every single time we walked past that shop, she'd stop and gaze at it like it was a lost childhood friend. She talked about it endlessly. How she used to play guitar in high school. How much she missed creating music. I started saving money in complete secret. Skipped lunch breaks. Took on extra freelance programming projects. Even delivered food on weekends when I should have been resting. Took me 4 solid months. But I finally bought that guitar. I had to sell my own electric guitar from high school to scrape together the final payment. But I genuinely didn't care about that sacrifice. When I presented it to her on our anniversary, she actually cried real tears. Hugged that guitar case tight against her chest, then wrapped her arms around me so hard I could barely breathe. "You're the only person who really truly sees me," she'd whispered into my neck, her voice cracking with emotion. "You just get it. You understand what actually matters to me. Nobody else has ever understood me the way you do now." That exact same guitar was propped forgotten in the corner of our bedroom, collecting dust like an abandoned museum piece. She hadn't touched it or played a single chord in over a year. It had become just another prop, a relic of a person I'd believed she was, but who had clearly never actually existed. I turned away from the window. The apartment suddenly felt alien and strange, like a museum exhibition of a failed relationship experiment. Her parting words continued echoing in the new hollow silence. "If you're going to be jealous, just leave." It wasn't a desperate plea or an angry threat anymore, and it was a clear instruction manual. And for the first time since she'd spoken those words, I felt this faint, icy smile touch my lips. The plan that formed wasn't born from white-hot rage or devastating heartbreak. It was born from that crystal-clear, hanging silence inside my chest. She had laid out the terms clearly. All I needed to do was agree and follow through completely. I walked directly to the bedroom closet and pulled out my old military-style duffel bag and the stack of flattened moving boxes we'd saved from when we first moved in together. I didn't rush or panic. This wasn't some frantic emotional escape. It was a systematic, methodical extraction operation. I started in the bedroom, pulling every article of my clothing out of the dresser drawers, out of the shared closet. I left all the hangers behind, every single book from our shared shelves that had my name scribbled inside the front cover from college. The frame photograph of my parents from their anniversary. The small bronze sculpture my grandfather had handmade before he passed away. The wool blanket from my childhood bedroom that my grandmother had knitted. My complete toolkit, my favorite chef's knife that I'd saved up to buy. The expensive noise-cancelling headphones she was constantly borrowing and stretching out. I moved methodically into the living room. I unplugged the 65 inches flat-screen television I'd purchased on a Black Friday sale 2 years prior, carefully wiped accumulated dust off its back panel, coiled all the cables and cords neatly. The gaming console went into a box. All the controllers, the wireless router, especially the router, which felt petty and satisfying simultaneously, let her figure out setting up her own internet connection from scratch. The modem followed into the same box. I deliberately left behind the hideous ceramic vase her mother had gifted us as a housewarming present. Left the garish abstract painting she'd bought at some flea market and repeatedly insisted would be worth serious money someday. Left all those decorative throw pillows she absolutely loved scattered across the couch. Left absolutely everything that was either communally ours or fundamentally hers alone. In the bathroom, I systematically cleared out my designated shelf. Electric razor, cologne, the good moisturizer. I'd splurged on my toothbrush and toothpaste, all my grooming supplies, left her expensive salon shampoo, all her bath products, all her makeup scattered chaotically across the counter like a cosmetics explosion. The entire process took me approximately 6 hours. The afternoon sun slowly moved across the apartment floors as I worked. I didn't stop to eat anything. Didn't put on any music or podcasts. Just the rhythmic sounds of cardboard boxes rustling, packing tape screeching from the dispenser, and sealed boxes thumping heavily on the hardwood floor. With each box I packed and sealed, I physically felt lighter, like I was systematically shedding a weighted suit I'd been wearing for years without consciously realizing how heavy it had become. This wasn't my home anymore. It was simply a stage set for a play that had reached its final curtain, and I was efficiently striking the set and removing all the props. The final step was the apartment key and the note I would leave. I placed my copy of the apartment key in the exact center of the bare kitchen counter. I took a single sheet of white printer paper and a black pen. My hand didn't hesitate even slightly. I wrote 2 words in my neat, precise architectural handwriting. Took your advice. No signature, no lengthy explanation, no emotional outburst. Just a perfect mirror reflection of her own cold statement thrown directly back at her without any of the venom she'd weaponized. I propped the note carefully against the key and surveyed the empty apartment one final time. It looked perfect. I called a moving company that advertised 24-hour climate-controlled storage units. An hour later, a college-aged kid with a hand dolly helped me efficiently load every single box and the television into a 10 by 10 storage unit across town. I paid for 3 full months up front in cash. Then I drove my car across the city to my older brother Jordan's apartment. Jordan opened his door, took one comprehensive look at my facial expression in the duffel bag clutched in my hand, and immediately stepped aside without asking a single question. "Couch is completely yours, man," he said, clapping me firmly on the shoulder. He simply handed me an ice-cold beer from his fridge. And that was it. No interrogation, no demands for explanation, just solid, silent, brotherly support. Sitting on Jordan's worn leather couch that night, the full reality of what I'd just done settled over me like a heavy blanket. I wasn't sad or devastated. I was genuinely free. That invisible chain that had been pulling tight around my collar for months was completely gone. I pulled out my phone one final time and opened Instagram. Vanessa's story was positioned right at the top of my feed. The first post showed her, Megan, and Olivia at an airport bar, glasses raised high in a toast. The caption read, "Vegas baby, no bad vibes allowed. Freedom." The implication was crystal clear to anyone reading. I was the bad vibe she was escaping from. My completely reasonable concerns were being framed as the enemy of her personal freedom. I swiped to view her next story, posted maybe 20 minutes after the first. The camera angle panned wider and there they were, clear as day. Brett and Zane sitting casually just 2 stools down from the girls, leaning comfortably into the frame like they'd been part of the group all along. They weren't randomly running into each other at all. They were functioning as a pre-coordinated unit. Zane had his arm draped casually over the back of Megan's chair. Brett was clinking his glass directly against Vanessa's. Her face was turned up toward him, laughing at something he just said. This bright, familiar laugh that she used to reserve exclusively for inside jokes with me. I didn't feel a spike of jealousy or betrayal. I didn't feel anything at all. It was simply pure confirmation, like checking a weather forecast and seeing the predicted rain actually falling exactly as expected. The possibility of betrayal wasn't theoretical anymore. It was right there in the hide pixels, public and proudly hashtag for the entire world to observe. I closed the Instagram app. I didn't block her profile yet. I wanted to see how this situation would ultimately play out. The love I'd felt for her didn't shatter into pieces in that moment. It didn't even hurt particularly. It just evaporated completely like water on scorching summer pavement. In its place was this vast, calm, empty space. I systematically blocked her across every platform. Instagram first, then Facebook, then Twitter and Snapchat. Then I navigated into my phone settings and blocked her phone number completely. I didn't delete the contact, just blocked it. Blocking felt significantly more final and permanent. It meant I knew with certainty she tried desperately to reach me, and I was preemptively refusing to allow that access. I set my phone face down on Jordan's coffee table and went to sleep on his comfortable couch. It was completely over, for me at least. The following 3 days passed in the strange, peaceful limbo state. I slept deeply on Jordan's couch. The kind of exhausted, dreamless sleep you experience after a prolonged illness finally breaks. I called my boss Monday morning, told her I had a family emergency and would be working remotely for the rest of the week. She simply said, "Handle whatever you need to check in Monday." And that was the entire conversation. I didn't check any social media platforms. Didn't wonder or obsess over what Vanessa was doing in Vegas. That mental channel that had been perpetually tuned to her frequency was just pure static now. White noise. I went for long runs through the city park, ate simple sandwiches with Jordan, and watched terrible action movies we'd loved as teenagers. I felt like a surgical patient recovering from a major operation, physically weak, but mentally clear-headed, deeply grateful for the simple absence of constant pain. Her return flight was scheduled for Sunday evening. I pictured it vaguely and distantly, the way you might imagine weather patterns in a foreign city you'll never visit. The plane touching down, the exhausted trek through airport security, the ride-share line home. Sunday night at exactly 8:17 p.m., my phone started buzzing insistently. Once, twice, a dozen rapid-fire times in quick succession. Short, aggressive vibrations. Jordan glanced up from the movie we were watching. "You planning to answer that?" "No," I said calmly, not moving from my position on the couch. The buzzing finally stopped. A minute later it started up again. A longer sustained buzz, an actual phone call. It went directly to voicemail. 30 seconds of silence. Then another call attempt. I sighed and picked up the phone. The screen displayed "unknown caller" in gray text. I felt this cold, knowing calm wash over my entire body. I accepted the call and immediately put it on speaker mode. Setting the phone back down on the table, I muted my microphone. Marcus, are you there?" Her voice was sharp, panicked, genuinely indignant. Not the voice of someone who missed me or felt remorse. The voice of someone who'd opened a door expecting one thing and discovered something completely different. "Hello." Pick up the phone. "Damn it. The power's completely out." "Why is the power out?" "And the internet is totally gone." "Marcus, this isn't funny at all. Where is all the stuff? Where's the TV? You can't just do this." Heavy silence. I could hear her breathing ragged and fast and panicked. The voicemail system beeped. The call disconnected automatically. Jordan raised an eyebrow at me. "Well, the plot certainly thickens." I just shook my head silently. The phone buzzed again immediately. A text message from a different unknown number. "Marcus, it's me. What the actual hell? I come home to a completely dark apartment and half of everything is just gone. This is absolutely insane. You need to call me right now. We need to talk about this situation like actual adults. I calmly deleted the text message. 5 minutes later, another buzz. Seriously, Marcus, I'm genuinely worried out about you. This is so extreme and unlike you. Are you having some kind of mental breakdown? Where are you even staying? We can figure this out together. Just please call me. The tactical shift had already begun. Raw anger was smoothly sliding into concerned trolling, trying to make me feel like I was the unstable, crazy one in this scenario. I could perfectly picture her standing alone in that dark, half-empty apartment. The reality of the void I'd left slowly sinking into her consciousness. The television she watched religiously every night gone. The router that connected her to her entire digital world gone. The comforting, taken for granted presence of all my belongings filling the space completely gone. I went to bed in Jordan's spare room. In the morning, there were 3 additional missed calls from various unknown numbers and a fresh flood of text messages. Marcus, please. I'm literally sitting on the floor and I'm scared. Please just call me back. I made a mistake. Babe. The trip was a stupid mistake. It wasn't what you're thinking. Brett and Zane are just friends. We all hung out as a group the whole time. That's it. I'm sorry I told you to leave. I was stressed and anxious about the trip. You know how I get when I'm anxious about things. I absolutely didn't mean it. Please, baby, just talk to me. The word baby felt like an ancient fossil, a term from a dead language that no longer held any meaning. Sparked absolutely nothing in me. The final message that morning came from a number I actually recognized. Her younger sister, Lauren. Marcus, what is wrong with you? Vanessa is completely devastated. She came home to an absolute nightmare. You can't just abandon someone like that over literally nothing. She needed some space to breathe and you went full psycho. Man up and fix this mess. Oh her. I stared at that message for a long moment. The narrative was already being carefully constructed and distributed to her entire family. Poor Vanessa. Her controlling, unstable boyfriend had a mental breakdown and essentially robbed her. I didn't respond at all. I simply blocked Lauren's number too. The consequences Vanessa was facing weren't some dramatic karmic explosion. They were the slow, dawning realization of natural logical outcomes. She wasn't being punished by some vengeful universe or deity. She was simply facing the direct results of her own explicit choices. She'd directly told her living boyfriend of 3 years to leave if he had a problem with her behavior. He'd had a legitimate problem. So he'd left thoroughly, completely, systematically. She'd gone on her trip, brazenly flaunting her freedom with other men, posting it publicly and proudly for everyone to see and judge. And she'd returned home to the absolute freedom of an empty, dark apartment. Exactly what she'd demanded. She'd wanted a life without my supposedly suffocating presence, without my jealousy and controlling behavior. Now she had precisely that completely and totally. The true unraveling for her wasn't captured in her increasingly panicked text messages. It was in the oppressive silence she now had to live in daily. The silence where my keyboard clicks used to echo while I worked. The empty cold on our shared bed. The absence of someone to cook dinner with or share the mundane details of the day with or casually borrow things from without asking permission. She'd fundamentally mistaken the entire infrastructure of our shared life for merely the backdrop of her personal life. And I had quietly, calmly, systematically dismantled that entire infrastructure. I got up, showered thoroughly, got dressed in clean clothes. I had different priorities to handle now. I opened a dating app one hadn't touched or thought about in 3 years. Updated my profile with a recent photo Jordan had taken of me during one of our morning runs in the park. I wasn't searching for a soulmate or my next serious relationship. I was looking for simple proof that life continued forward for a quiet dinner with someone new who hadn't told me to leave. I swiped through profiles for a while. The simple mundanity of it felt genuinely revolutionary. Within an hour, I matched with a woman named Nina. Her profile was witty and self-aware. Her smile seemed genuine and warm. We exchanged several messages back and forth. She was a graphic designer, enjoyed hiking and camping. Loved terrible sci-fi movies, ironically. I know it's pretty short notice, but any interest in grabbing a drink tonight, I typed. Could honestly use a break from my own thoughts. Honestly, same here, she replied quickly. 8 p.m. at The Alchemist. They have an amazing patio. I agreed immediately. Felt genuinely surreal. 48 hours ago, my entire life had been this closed loop revolving around Vanessa. Now, I was casually setting up a date with a complete stranger. And all I felt was this mild, pleasant curiosity about the evening. As I got ready that evening, my phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number, another voicemail. I played it while buttoning my shirt. Vanessa's voice was noticeably thick with tears this time. The performance more polished, more deliberately desperate. Marcus, it's me. I'm so sorry for absolutely everything. The trip was stupid. I was stupid. I came home and you were just completely gone. You really left. I can't eat anything. I can't sleep. Please, I'll do literally anything. Just come home. We can fix this. Love you. Please just call me back. Please. The I love you was the final hollow gesture, a tool she'd successfully deployed to win arguments in the past. It landed with the weight of air, completely meaningless. I deleted the voicemail, finished getting ready, and looked at myself in Jordan's bathroom mirror. My eyes were clear and calm, no grief visible, no anger, just a man getting ready to go on a date. At 7:55, I walked into The Alchemist. The patio area was warm and inviting, buzzing with conversation and genuine laughter. Nina was waiting at a corner table under strings of soft lights. She was noticeably prettier than her profile pictures with this easy, natural, relaxed smile. We greeted each other, and the conversation immediately flowed effortlessly. My phone sitting on the wooden table next to my drink buzzed once. The screen lit up. Unknown caller. Na's eyes flicked to it briefly, then back to me with polite curiosity. I picked up the phone calmly and deliberately hit the side button, silencing it completely. Turned the screen face down on the table with a soft, definitive tap. I looked back at Nina, my voice genuinely warm. Sorry about that. Where were we? You were saying the sequel is actually better than the original, which is a take I absolutely need to hear you defend, she said with a playful grin. The phone buzzed once more against the wood. I didn't flinch or react. Didn't look down. I was already gone from that old life. The date with Nina was a revelation in its beautiful simplicity. No hidden agendas or manipulation. No constant tests. No obsessively analyzing every word for hidden meanings or traps. We talked about movies, our respective messy creative professions, our mutual passionate hatred of cilantro. It was light, genuinely engaging, and deeply peaceful. When I walked her to her car later and we shared a brief but promising good night kiss, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Completely uncomplicated anticipation for the future. The persistent buzzing of my phone when I got back to my car was like an insect repeatedly hitting a window. Annoying but ultimately irrelevant. I drove back to Jordan's apartment, city lights blurring past the windows. Didn't check any notifications until I was settled on the couch. The screen showed an absolute cascade of desperate attempts, a digital monument to her escalating panic and loss of control. I saw you were active online. You're deliberately ignoring me after everything we've been through. How can you possibly be this cold? I'm not eating anything. I physically can't. The apartment is so empty and quiet. I keep thinking I hear you moving around in the other room. This is cruel, Marcus. I called the power company. The account was in your name. I had to pay a $150 reconnection fee just to get lights and the internet. Really? That's so incredibly petty. Lauren says she saw your profile on Heart. You're on dating apps already. Are you serious? We're still together. You can't do this. Sorry. I looked at your profile. Please just talk to me. I'll stop checking on you if you just answer once. Tell me what you want me to do to fix this. There was a voicemail time-stamped 12:17 a.m. Her voice was noticeably slurred, thick with whine and raw self-pity. Hey, it's me again. I'm just sitting here alone in the dark. I finally got a lamp plugged in. At least it's so quiet here. I never realized how much ambient noise you made just existing, typing on your keyboard, cooking in the kitchen, just breathing. A wet, pathetic sniffle. I miss it so much. Miss you. The trip was nothing. Swear. Brett is an idiot. Zane actually tried to kiss me and I pushed him away hard. I swear to God. I told him I had a boyfriend. I said I had you. I was being stupid trying to feel young or free or something. And you were just there being stable and reliable and I took it completely for granted. God, I took you so for granted. Call me back, please. I'm literally begging you. The performance was almost impressive in its dramatic arc: indignation, then negotiation, then victimhood, and finally this carefully crafted version of confession specifically designed to trigger forgiveness. The line about Zane trying to kiss her was a new desperate twist in the narrative. Whether it was actually true was completely irrelevant at this point. It was simply another manipulation tool. I didn't respond to anything. I plugged my phone into the charger and went to sleep. Her emotional unraveling wasn't my emergency to manage anymore. The next morning, her attempts took a sharper, more strategically aggressive turn. Text from Lauren using yet another new number. Marcus, it's Lauren again. Vanessa is staying with me now. She's a complete wreck, crying constantly. Whatever point you're trying to prove, you've definitely made it. You've heard her enough. Now be a decent human being and at least meet her to talk. She deserves closure at the very least. I stared at that message. The sheer audacity of demanding I provide closure after Vanessa had issued the relationship eviction notice was almost comedic. I typed a single sentence, my first and only response to any of them. She has all the closure she gave me. This conversation is over. I sent it, then immediately blocked that number too. The backlash was instantaneous and vicious. A new unknown number. Clearly Vanessa with her mask completely off. Fine. You want to be a heartless fine. You were never enough for me anyway. You think I wanted to settle for a boring, predictable life with you? Brett has a BMW. Zane owns his own condo. What do you have? A storage unit and your brother's couch. You did me a favor by leaving. You're a coward who couldn't even fight for me. I read it with this faint, cold smile. There it was. Finally, the real currency she valued. The BMW, the condo, the material scorecard where I'd failed to measure up. This was the bedrock foundation beneath all her accusations of jealousy and control. I took a screenshot, not from any hurt, but simply as documentation of who she truly was beneath the performance. The text messages stopped completely for several hours after that outburst. The silence was significantly more revealing than all the noise had been. She'd played her final ugly card and received nothing but digital silence in return. I spent that day seriously applying for apartments, the concrete act of actively building a new future for myself. That evening, as Jordan and I were preparing dinner together, my phone rang. It was my mom calling. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, her voice careful and measured. "I just received a very strange call from a very upset young woman named Vanessa." Closed my eyes. She'd actually called my mother. The boundary violation was absolutely breathtaking. "What did she say to you?" "She was crying pretty hard. Said you'd abandoned her, taken her things, left her in terrible financial trouble. Said you were having a serious mental crisis and that the family needed to stage an intervention." She sounded desperate. Marcus, also not entirely truthful. What's actually going on? I felt protective anger rising, not for myself, but for my mom being dragged into this toxic mess. I gave her the abbreviated factual version. She explicitly told me to leave if I had a problem with her going to Vegas with 2 other guys. I had a problem, so I left. That's the entire story. She's dealing with the direct consequences of her own words and choices. Please block her number, Mom. My mom was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she said simply, "Well, that's that then. I'm making your dad's famous pot roast this weekend. Bring a friend if you'd like." The message was absolutely clear. "We believe you. Your life belongs to you." It was the only validation I needed. The final attempt came Friday night. Call from a number with our old neighborhood area code. I answered but stayed completely silent. "Marcus, It was Vanessa, but her voice was small now, hollowed out completely. All the dramatic performance burned away. What remained sounded like pure defeat. I got your note, took your advice. That's all. After 3 years together, that's all that you have to say. It was all that was required, I said calmly. It was the first time I'd actually spoken to her since I'd said enjoy your trip. I'm losing the apartment, she whispered, her voice cracking. I can't afford the lease by myself. My credit isn't good enough to qualify solo. I have to move out in 2 weeks. I said absolutely nothing. The silence stretched between us like a vast canyon. Aren't you going to say anything? She demanded, a spark of her old irritation flashing through. Aren't you sorry even a little bit? That was the question she'd been building toward this entire time. The demand that I participate emotionally in her downfall. That I feel guilty so she could feel absolved. Whoa. But I said the word came out clean and simple as a stone dropping into deep water. A choked sound came from her end of the line. Not quite a sob. The sound of a final door slamming permanently shut. Who are you? She asked, not in anger, but in genuine bewildered horror. The guy who took your advice, I said. Goodbye, Vanessa. Hung up. Didn't block the number. She wouldn't call again. I knew it with absolute certainty. 2 weeks later, Na and I were at Sunday brunch together. We'd been out 4 times now. It was easy, fun, genuinely uncomplicated. I'd signed a lease on a sunny 1-bedroom apartment with a park view. Moving in the following week. My life felt like a blank page, and I was enjoying the process of filling it in. We were at the Green Fig, a trendy brunch spot known for its legendary waffles and absurd wait times. We'd gotten fortunate and snagged a patio table. Nina was in the middle of telling me this hilarious story about a complete disaster client meeting, using her fork to act out the whole ridiculous scene, and I was laughing genuinely when I felt the atmosphere shift around us. A shadow fell directly across our table. I looked up. Vanessa stood there. She looked diminished, not destroyed, but definitely faded. Her hair was pulled back in a careless, messy ponytail. She wore old faded jeans and an oversized hoodie. Her eyes were red-rimmed, fixed intensely on me, burning with this toxic mixture of desperation and rage. She completely ignored Nina's existence. Marcus. Her voice was flat, demanding attention. Na's story died mid-sentence. She looked from Vanessa to me, politely curious about this interruption. Vanessa, I said, nodding like I'd spotted a casual acquaintance across a crowded room. My voice was exactly the same I'd use for anyone. I turned to Nina. Nah, this is Vanessa. Vanessa. Nina. The polite, normal introduction was like a psychological slap across the face. Vanessa physically flinched, her eyes finally moved to Nina, taking in her easy smile, her hand resting comfortably near mine on the table. The shared carf of mimosas, the comfortable intimacy we were clearly occupying. We need to talk, Vanessa said, her gaze snapping back to me. The command was there, but brittle now, fragile. It's important. We've said everything that needs to be said, I replied calmly, picking up my coffee. Took a sip, still hot and perfect. You left me with nothing, she hissed, her volume rising noticeably. Nearby tables glanced over with interest. You ghosted me completely. You stole from me. You ruined my entire life. I have to move back in with my parents. Do you understand that? Because of your little stunt, I'm 28 years old, moving back into my childhood bedroom. Na shifted slightly in her seat. I gave her a small apologetic smile that communicated this would be over soon. I looked back at Vanessa and spoke calmly, clearly for the entire patio and for her. You told me to leave if I had a problem. I had a problem. So I left. I took what was mine. I left what was yours. The lease was in both our names. You not being able to afford it alone is a financial reality, not a punishment I inflicted. You got exactly what you asked for. You just didn't like what it actually looked like. Her face contorted with rage and frustration. Tears welled up, but they were tears of pure frustrated anger, not sadness. You were supposed to fight for me, she choked out desperately. When I said leave, you were supposed to beg me to stay, to prove you actually cared. That's what you do when you love someone. There was, finally, the core script I'd refused to follow. I hadn't played my assigned role as the graveling, insecure boyfriend. So, her corresponding role as the magnanimous forgiver had completely evaporated. Her entire narrative had collapsed because I wouldn't perform my designated part. I did love someone, I said, my voice still perfectly even. But the person I loved, the one who cried over a guitar, who talked about building a future together, that person wasn't you. She was a story I told myself. The real you told me to leave. So I listened to the real you. She stared at me, mouth slightly open, searching desperately for a weapon and finding absolutely none. The insults, the guilt, the tears. None of it could penetrate the calm, factual fortress I now occupied. Her eyes darted to Nina again, who watched with detached, analytical interest, then back to me, searching frantically for any crack of pain or lingering attachment. She found nothing at all, only polite, impenetrable indifference. The fight visibly drained from her shoulders. The public scene was curdling around her. She was the only person standing, the only one making noise and causing disruption. I was just a man at brunch being bothered by an unstable ex. So that's it, she whispered, the last ember of hope dying in her voice. That's really it. That's it, I confirmed simply. I picked up the menu even though I knew it by heart. Turned to Na, my voice warming as I returned to our world. Sorry about that interruption. Where were we? You were saying the salted caramel waffle is legendary, but it's a serious commitment. The mixed berries might be the smarter choice. I wasn't dismissing Vanessa with cruelty. I was simply resuming my actual life. She had ceased to be a relevant feature in it. For a long suspended moment, she just stood there frozen, a statue of defeat in the middle of a bustling sunny patio. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away, shoulders hunched against the bright morning light. I didn't watch her go. Didn't explain her to Na. Na, to her immense credit, didn't ask for details. She just reached across the table, squeezed my hand briefly and said, "Berries are always the smarter choice. But since when are we smart? Let's live dangerously. I say we get the caramel." I laughed, the sound genuine and completely unforced. We ordered the waffle. It was, as promised, absolutely legendary. We split the check equally, debated which movie we'd see later that afternoon, and walked out together into the bright day. As I held the restaurant door open for Nina, I caught our reflection in the large window glass. Just two people stepping forward into their day together. No ghosts following behind us. No echoes from painful pasts. Just the simple solid present and a future that was finally unquestionably mine. I'd taken her advice and I'd never been happier.